Hello, my friends. So it's been a long time since I've answered some viewer questions, so I thought I would do that. And because it's come up in a lot of various videos, I think I'll just go ahead and talk a little bit about my beliefs so that maybe people can have a better understanding of who I am. So, I hope you enjoy and stick around. So the first question comes from SFSC16171. I don't know how to pronounce that, so Dear Hellbound Heathen, Dear HH, hi and merry meet. I have a question. I remember a passage from some book I read before Katrina washed out all my journals. Oh, that sucks. I'm sorry about that. That reminded practitioners that their blade should be in size comparable to the depth and width of the cup. The passage used as an extreme example a World War I rifle bayonet coupled with an amperative glass. I guess that's a type of glass that I'm not familiar with. Have you ever heard of such a passage? No, I have not heard of such a passage. Here is my athame here, and the cup that I have probably would only go up to about this part of the blade. I think there's another meaning in that particular passage, and if you understand the symbolism of the cup and the athame, you will probably get an understanding of where that joke might lie. But the only thing that I know of an athame is, why do I keep emphasis? Athame is what's comfortable for you. I have seen people who have quite a huge blade on their athame, and then some people who have a very modest, small, little blade. It really depends upon what feels comfortable for you. Now, the way that I learned to use an athame in circle comes from the fact that we had large groups of people, well, maybe not a large group of people, but we had several people in a small area. So, if you've ever seen some videos of, like, let's say the LBRP, the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, they draw a huge pentagram, and the exaggerated movements is part of that tradition, part of that process. In a circle with other people around you, and especially even though you may have a dull blade, it does have a point to it. So I learned to do very small movements in a circle, basically keeping it within my own, shoulder width, not going outside of it, because chances are sorry about that, I might poke somebody over here, and then going back over here, oh, I'm sorry about that, I might poke somebody over here. So I learned to keep it kind of in a small little area. As for any hard and fast rule, I'm not familiar with one. I would say, again, whatever feels comfortable for you. I find the length of a palm is a good size for me. So if you have a small palm, maybe a blade that's a little smaller. If you have a larger palm, maybe a little larger blade. That's kind of a good general rule. All right, next one. Jacqueline Bell asks, do you need to be a Wiccan to cast a circle? I don't know. I will say that there's a lot of information that is perpetuated in, I'm just going to say it, in YouTube community. And I noticed that what it does is it kind of grows like cancer, I guess is the best way to describe it. What'll happen is somebody will introduce an idea and somebody else will run with that idea, and and then other people will pick it up, and then you'll see like a whole series or a little cluster of these videos and these ideas. However, I often question the source of that and where it actually comes from. And I still do that too today. When I hear something, I kind of wonder exactly where it came from. My understanding of especially a Wiccan circle is that that is part of the Wicca tradition. Now, other forms of witchcraft that are not based on Wicca, I often wonder how they evolved and how they've developed, because I'm assuming that they have evolved completely separate from Wicca, because I just assume that they've completely evolved separate from Wicca. So the concept that other witches would use a circle, I don't know. I guess it's within the realm of possibility. I don't see why they would have to, because their tradition is completely separate from Wicca and has absolutely nothing to do with it. At least that's what I'm led to believe. So if that's the case, I don't know. I would assume that they probably would not have to cast a circle. I think casting a circle it serves several purposes, and I've done a video on this. First of all, it is to designate a temple, let's say for a Sabbat, a winter solstice celebration, for example. Or it is used to harness energy, like let's say in spell work. Or it is used as a protective barrier so that those within the temple can feel safe. So it serves several different purposes. It's not just one purpose to casting a circle. So I don't see why somebody who does not practice Wicca would cast a circle. I guess they could, but their purpose of casting a circle may be completely separate from Wicca. Again, I'm under the assumption that other witchcraft traditions have evolved completely separate and have absolutely nothing to do with Wicca whatsoever. If this is the case, I don't see why they would cast a circle. Hope that answers your question. Hell/13, can you make a video about atheistic Wicca? Yes, I probably should do a video. I'm actually going to talk a little bit about this later on, because I'm going to talk a little bit about my beliefs. Claiming to be an atheistic Wiccan myself is I kind of feel it sort of strays away from traditional Wicca, because traditional Wicca has a god and a goddess. It has a lord and a lady, and those are specific deities. And being atheistic means that you don't believe in deities. So I don't want to spread the concept of atheistic Wicca. I would prefer to say that there are Wiccans who are atheistic, and their concept of deity may be various different things. The concept of deity is not always a power and a being that has consciousness outside of a human understanding or human senses. The concept of a deity may be a collective unconscious or a collective consciousness of a culture, of a group, or of a people. So they also could represent Jungian archetypes within ourselves: the god and the goddess, the warrior and the wizard, and all the other various archetypes. So those deities can be seen as archetypes within ourselves, which is pretty much how I view deity. I do not view deity as a being outside of myself, but rather the archetype within myself. And that is how I see it. But again, calling that atheistic Wicca, I think, is I think it would be better to say that some Wiccans are atheistic and some Wiccans are theistic, and some Wiccans are polytheistic or duotheistic, polytheistic, etc., etc. So I hope that answers your question, but maybe I will do a video on that later on. Hey Jay. What movie, TV series was the clip with Woody Harrelson taken from? I love Mr. Harrelson as an actor, and I thought I had seen everything with Woody in it. Yeah, I think that was from the Pizzagate and the Horned God video, or Pizza and the Horned God. I think they called it True Crime. I will look into it. I'll put the name below. But yeah, I agree. I think he's a good actor. Zafiro Ventus Montanus sent me this email a while ago, so my apologies for now getting to it. Why a great priestess can roll a coven and a great priest not? Thanks. So I think his question is why a high priestess oversees, well, not really rules, but basically oversees or is in charge of, has the final word in a coven rather than a high priest. This is pretty much in most covens. It's not in every single coven, but traditionally in Gardnerian, Alexandrian covens, this is the case. And the way that I was taught is that the high priest and high priestess are equals, but she, how is it worded? The high priestess is first among equals. So that's how it was put. So I think it just goes back. It just is part of tradition. I don't really know exactly why it's that way. It just is. I think it's really good for a coven to either grow or decay, depending upon who is leading it. You can have people who are fantastic leaders, and those covens usually thrive and then shoot off other covens from them, other covens hive off from them. And if they use the same model that high priest and high priestess were using, chances are that coven is probably, those other covens that are branched off are probably going to prosper. If you have a high priest or a high priestess who is leading a coven who is power hungry, demands bizarre things from the coven, the other coveners, if it just is, anyhow, there's a lot of covens that just don't make it. They just kind of like, they survive for maybe a little while and then they just dissolve away because either the high priest and high priestess break up, or the coveners leave, or they develop a bad reputation, which can happen in some communities, and they can just dissolve, and that's just the way it is. However, it's good to have one person leading, because having one person lead allows for either that coven to succeed or to fail. Most covens, however, in my opinion, and I haven't sat in every single coven in the entire world, but my opinion is that most covens are probably majority rule. I think most covens, for the most part, collectively decide what they want to do. But again, there are certain occasions where the high priestess will probably have to make a final decision about one thing or the other. She may consult with the coveners and decide what to do, what it would be the best for all of them. So, kind of a long answer to your question, but I hope that helps. Again, there probably are covens that the high priest is the one who leads it. Okay, and then finally, I got a video response, which is kind of cool, from Dorian J. I really like his video. He has really good sound equipment, so I'm really interested to find out what more he does with this channel.
Hello, Mr. Hellbound. Now, I have 3 questions I've been dying to ask you. How do you feel about the evolution of Wicca from being really traditional and really more coven-based to really just, you're a high school kid, Wicca's cool, it's hip to be a witch? I don't know. Just the first question I really wanted to ask you.
So, the evolution of Wicca from a very traditional mainstream type of face-to-face tradition compared to a book-based, eclectic, whatever goes, goes type of practice of Wicca. I think, as with most things, I think there are positives and I think there are negatives. I think it is a very strong positive to have a face-to-face interaction with a coven group. The reason why I say this is because I feel that there is a lot of information, a lot of training that happens outside of books. It's word of mouth. It's something that you learn over time. Some things are learned just because people do them. And then there's other things that people learn that are actually valuable that sometimes often people forget to write down in a book. So traditional Wicca, I do not think will, I think if anything, it's going to shrink down to probably what it was meant to be. And that is for people who are very serious about it, enjoy that type of relationship. And that tradition, I think, is going to carry on. I think it may shrink and swell over time, but I think there's always going to be a tradition. It's throughout the entire world, especially in America and England, Ireland, Germany, and I'm sure other parts of the world. I think that the ego of a lot of Wiccans get in the way. I think especially here in America, there are traditions that butt heads, and I think that that is destructive. I think that in that sense, there is a lot that we can learn from English covens. I think people need to kind of let go of, they're really holding on with their teeth and they're just like growling and they just won't let go. And they need to let go. They need to just, you know what, bury that and come together. They need to do that. That is one of the most important things they need to do, especially in the American traditions. Now, when I'm talking about traditional Wicca covens here, like Gardnerian, Alexandrian, and other offshoots of those. As for eclectic Wicca, I think again, eclectic Wicca serves a very important purpose. I think it's very important for people to be able to kind of branch out and find out what fits for them, what appeals to them. I feel kind of like they don't really get the real traditional Wicca experience because you can't be a traditional Wiccan as a solitary. It's a whole different experience. You have to experience it with a group. You have to be initiated into that group, experience that group, and work together with the group to really understand it. Being a solitary, no matter what, you just can't mimic that experience. And for that, it's kind of unfortunate. Maybe even if they did experience it, let's say they did go through that, that might not be for them. But I think giving themselves the opportunity to at least experience it will be beneficial. But I think when it comes down to it, all Wiccans are pretty much solitary. They're all, I think it's just, even if you just go back in some of the lore, they just kind of are. And maybe they actually only came together for certain occasions. But when it comes down to it, everybody has their own solitary practice. And that is going to lead into something else that I'm going to talk about. So, I think that traditional definitely has its benefits. And I think eclectic helps people to have an experience with Wicca, but it's not the same experience. These are two different experiences. And, I think eclectic Wicca, eventually is going to, eventually it's just going to collapse. I don't see it. It doesn't have any container. It doesn't have any rules. It doesn't really have anything to kind of keep it cohesive. And so I think that people are going to get into it and fall out of it quickly because it's just not meeting what they need. And I'm not knocking it. I think Eclectic Wicca does have something for people. But in the long run, I don't really see it evolving into anything other than what it is. And that is just kind of like a hodgepodge of various things. And for that, I think that, I don't think people will stay in Eclectic Wicca for a very long time. But again, I could be wrong. That, again, is my own opinion. So if you are an Eclectic Wiccan out there, I hope I didn't offend you, but that's just my honest opinion.
My second question is, do you actually believe that tarot cards work? Now, I've watched lots of documentaries, lots of he say, she say YouTube videos, but I really want to know your professional opinion. Do you actually think tarot cards work?
Oh, wow. Okay. Just ask those questions. Okay. That's I don't think there's one answer for that question. So I'm going to give my personal opinion. I do not think tarot cards give you any insight into unknown information. I do not think that it is actually peeks into a realm of unknown possibilities. I think that good tarot card readers use the cards, use their own intuition, their own feelings. They use all other subtle cues. Now, a lot of these cues are probably subconscious. Many of them may even be conscious cues. And I think that using these things, they formulate a way to describe a situation to someone. It could be that they are actually opening up to their subconscious and are able to gather information and then give that to people. So I think that tarot cards are a way of communicating with the subconscious. There are a lot of ways that we communicate with each other that is not always verbal. We can pick up on certain things. Certain people ask certain questions, or we ask them questions, or we see their reaction to certain questions, and that can kind of help us to understand what exactly it is. So that's my opinion. But again, I'm not a very good tarot reader. There are people, I think, who are very good tarot readers. And honestly, I don't know what their secret is. They may have some other information that I'm unaware of that they are able to tap into. So, this is my opinion of tarot cards. But again, other people have their own opinion about tarot cards. I think it's more important about what you think of tarot cards rather than what I think.
My third question is a little bit more serious, but what advice would you give to someone who is legitimately seeking God or God and Goddess? Now, I'm on this path right now where I'm trying to find what's right for me. I've searched from Abrahamic to Satanic to everything in between. I just really want to know what advice you would give to someone like me. Thank you for taking your time to at least watch this. I'm not sure if you're going to post it on your YouTube channel, but even if you could just do some tweets about it, I'd be really thankful. All right, have a good night, man.
Know yourself. I think that that is of all of the wisdom that I have, that I read, encountered, was told, I think knowing oneself is the best. I think that don't be afraid to let your beliefs evolve over time. Don't be afraid to let things go or adapt other things. Spend time thinking. Spend time thinking about everything. Spend time out in nature. I mean, it sounds corny, but I honestly believe this. Spend time with the ocean, spend time out in the natural world, look at the world, think about the world, think about everything. Think about life, think about death, think about the universe, think about the earth. Just think about everything and come to your own conclusion. And if you end up falling into a category like myself, where your beliefs become malleable, meaning that you're not like hard and stern and saying, you know, this is my beliefs and that's just the way it is, and then you die that way, that's not how I view it. I believe what I believe, but what I believe today is not what I believed 20 years ago. So I allow my beliefs to change with new information that comes in, what I've thought about, other things. So I think the best thing to do is come to your own conclusion. I think a lot of people make money off of telling people what they need to hear. And basically all they're telling you is what you want to hear or what they think you want to hear. And later on, thousands of dollars later, you find out that that person was full of shit. And to be quite honest, I think that they are. I think that every single person, if they're absolutely honest with themselves, come to their own conclusions, and nobody really teaches them anything. They come to their own conclusions. Or you may feel like you spend money on this course, learn all the stuff, read all these books, and then one day feel like you're living a lie because you're not living what you actually believe. You're actually living some kind of plastic reconstruction of someone else's ideas of what things are supposed to be. So I think that that's the most honest answer I can give you, is to spend time out in nature, quietly, alone, and think about it and come to your own conclusions. And I think that that is the best. Who knows what your conclusion will be? But whatever conclusion you come to is going to be a conclusion that is comfortable with you, and you've actually thought about it. So, with that said, I'm going to talk a little bit about my beliefs. Again, my beliefs are not important, to be quite honest. What I believe is not important. What you believe is more important. But because it has come up a couple of times, I thought I would talk about it. Now, obviously, I am an atheist Wiccan, and that is, again, not exactly how most Wiccans are. Most Wiccans believe in a god and a goddess. I, again, believe in the archetype of the person within that formulate the god and the goddess. I enjoy a lot of the philosophy, a lot of the wisdom, and a lot of the knowledge that comes from the occult. Some very, very famous people have studied the occult in the past and have given us the society that we live in today. And to be quite honest, I feel that they are unsung heroes, and this is an unsung part of our human development through the Enlightenment that a lot of people just don't like to touch on. But one of the reasons why I enjoy the practice that I have is the ritual of it. I enjoy ritual. And it's just something that I enjoy doing. So if people ask why I practice Wiccan rituals or why I would practice occult rituals, is because I enjoy the ritual aspect of it. And the other day when I was in that hangout and I was talking with Anthony, and he was asking me why I believe in magic, and I couldn't really give him a good answer because it's just something that I believe. And regardless of what it might be, if it's a psychological process that we go through, or if it's actually being able to change the future. I enjoy the ritual of it. I enjoy the concept of it. And it is something that I find comfort in. Now, I could pull out my diaries and go through all the various spells that I've done and see which ones have worked and which ones have not worked. And I'm not here to try and sell magic on anyone. That's not what I'm here to do. I will teach people how to practice it. I will teach people processes of creating talismans and sigils and how to think about things and how to process stuff, how to concentrate, how to focus, how to meditate. I will teach all of these things. But as for the proof of whether it works or it doesn't work, that I'm going to leave up to the individual to decide for themselves. If it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, you're going to move on to something else. I think that that's pretty much it. If you don't find anything of worth in something, chances are you're probably going to discard it. You're probably not going to carry on with it. Those who do carry on in something that really doesn't give them any gratification usually do so because they receive peer pressure from other people or their group or their family or their culture or their society or whatever. And so they kind of hunker down, they kind of carry along and go through the motions of it, even though in the back of the mind, they actually don't believe it. So this is what I don't want to spread. I think that people, especially nowadays, you have the capacity to do whatever you want, believe whatever you want, practice whatever you want, and not feel that you have any pressure from anyone whatsoever to do it. The only person you have to report to at the end of every day is yourself. Anyhow, I'm getting off onto a tangent. Thank you so much. Thank you for your questions, and I hope I answered your question to the best of my ability. Again, if you have any questions for me, the best thing to do is to email me. This is my email below. That is the best way, or you can also tweet to me at my Twitter handle. Thank you so much, and blessed be.